the biggest month on record. So are investors just buying the dip? Joining us now to discuss is Hao Hong, chief economist at Grow Investment Group. I should say he's known for his outspoken views on China's financial markets and the economy. How Explain this for me. Why are we down 5.6% in this main index, but yet we're seeing investors pile in?
Yeah, well, I think people are in general disappointed by, the pace of policy announcements that is coming out from the top, right? So, every one of us is waiting for a huge, big bang announcement, some sort of bazooka policy to, to ease monetary and also fiscal expansion as well. But we're not getting that. Instead, we're getting piecemeal policy bit by bit. So I think as a result, the market is likely to be disappointed. But then at the same time, because the sell-off has been like so severe that now the Chinese market has declined to one of its lowest valuation on record. I think that is the reason why I think that lower valuation is attracting foreign investors to come into this part of the world.
So we've seen some of these support measures happen, but of course not that big bazooka that investors, I believe yourself included, were looking for. I mean, is that still in the cards, or are we just going to have to make do with these piecemeal measures from now on?
It remains to be seen, to be honest. Because normally when they cut stamp duty, it's a very strong policy signal coming from the top, basically saying that, they really want to shore up the confidence and also shore up the market and the economy. So, normally, it is a sort of a pre-announcement of, what is to come in the coming months. So I think many of us are still remaining hopeful. And also last night, as you can see, they announced a cut on existing mortgage, to make it easier for people who has already borrowed to buy homes, to buy even more homes. And also, today in Guangzhou, they're easing the lending standard once again. And Guangzhou is a key tier 1 cities in China. So I think, there are many things going on. I think what is lacking this time around is that, we don't really have a number to work with. Back in 2008, they announced a 4 trillion yuan stimulus package. Back then the GDP in China is like 40 trillion yuan. So it's like 10% of the GDP in one go in a stimulus package. But this time around, we're not, seeing a concrete number that we can work with.
I mean, that's fair because, especially for those living in Western countries, the kind of traditional Keynesian stimulus that we're used to, it is things like direct transfers to households. I want to read you a quote from Wall Street Journal reporting on
exports has been down rather substantially. It's a reflection of weakening foreign demand, and that is part of the economy that we have no control. Right? So even though a weaker currency can help improve the competitiveness of the Chinese exports, but, foreign demand for Chinese goods are down this year. So I think, in terms of philosophical difference, since we are, trying to stimulate consumption, and I think Chinese households at this juncture really need some help, I think, handing out consumption coupon or even some cash for the Chinese household is actually one of the better ways, many of us are seeing, but then we're not getting it. I think we're actually hearing that, the idea is being vetoed by the top. So, no one's really sure what's going on.
How are you still buying bonds, Chinese sovereign bonds? Last time in May we spoke, you said you're buying them. You're right on. The rally continued. Will it continue further?
I think so, because as you can see, the danger for deflation and also the deflationary pressure is still on. And if the Chinese consumption is not catching up, and also Chinese investments continue to trend down because the property sector is still ailing, then I'll be surprised to see, long bond yield in China actually making a new low for its entire history. So, in this kind of environment, because of the risk aversion and also because of the outlook for deflation, it probably pays to have, some bonds in your portfolio.
Well, the latest news, Hao, is that Country Garden will issue $34 million worth of shares as it attempts to dodge default. Can it truly dodge default? And then does this turn into a systemic issue?
Yeah, I don't think it can dodge. I think technically it's already defaulting on many of the payments on its foreign bonds. And I think what's different this time is that, the defaulting on the US dollar bonds, which is probably not a usual sort of a default pattern. Normally they make it a priority to pay off the US dollar denominated bonds. So I think, even though they're issuing, 34 million US dollars worth of share, it's just piecemeal. It's not enough, nearly enough to cover, 2.4 trillion yuan they have in liabilities. So I think it would be very, very difficult to avoid a default for Evergrande and also for Country Garden as well. But I think, in terms of, a systemic risk, it is slow grinding, right? So many of us are very aware of such risk because, the amount is just so huge. So, waiting, to see what sort of solution can be had from the top.
Interesting. Hao Hong, thank you for joining us. Hao Hong of Grow Investment Group with a reality check for Country Garden and China. Coming up, hurricane.